Well, a little ambivalent. It's not the budget we would write if we were in the majority, but it's a good budget. If you really think about it, the governor put up a budget in February at $34.1 billion, give or take. The budget we just voted on the floor of the Senate was $33.997. So for all intents and purposes, the investment that we're making, the spend number, if you will, is about $150 million less than the governor suggested. It's in a lot of ways the governor's budget. So with that, we also had a situation where, despite the lower spend number, the legislature, including folks on our side of the aisle, had priorities that we felt needed to be added back into the governor's budget, things that were our priorities, and there was $120 million in additional investment that we added back in. So if you think about that, that's about a $280 million adjustment between a lower spend and an increase in investment on the things that we thought were priorities. So that means something else had to give in the overall budget, right? But there's some really, really good news in this budget. On the education front, $160 million more in basic ed. That's helpful. It doesn't get us home, but it's helpful. $50 million increase in special ed, which schools desperately need. Early childhood education, pre-K counts. $5 million more for our public library system. It's long been coming. We had across the board 2% increase in community colleges, state system of higher education, state-related, which is helpful. $36 or $37 million investment in FIA grants. I sit on the FIA board. This is really important this year. If we did not get support from the general fund this year, we would not have been able to keep level the amount of aid that we provide through the state grant program, nor would we have had as many or even the same amount of student beneficiaries. And these students are, in some of the most economically challenged families, and in some cases it's children that are the first to get to college. So as a FIA board member and as a lawmaker, that's a big deal to continue to be able to provide that aid. We did some really good things in human services, a lot of money for intellectual disabilities. We added money to allow for community and home-based care for our seniors, nearly 2,000 seniors that will be able to assist in addition, greater than last year. Money for attendant care, which helps seniors and persons with disabilities. Something like $34 million for county-based child services. Money for quality daycare. So really good stuff in that space. And then there are some other things that are a little bit under the radar because they're not necessarily general fund budget-related issues, but issues that come across through the codes or through other legislation. I really supported the $40 million commitment to small water and sewer programs. That's a $15 million increase. That was a program that was not funded for a couple of years. So we're stepping back into that space because there's great demand there. That's a big deal for me back home, I'm sorry. But I also think that there was additional funding that's going to be going into agriculture, 90% increase there. That budget has suffered mightily over the past couple of years. So I really have deep respect for Secretary Redding. I'm glad that we're able to give him about a $19 million increase this year. The farm bills that we did, and Judy Schwenk, our chairman of agriculture, was very instrumental in moving that policy front. We're going to do some big things for our dairy industry that's under siege. So I'm pleased overall. I think that we're fortunate to have a good performing economy. Makes it easier for us to do our job in this building. There were things we didn't do, but I'm pleased with the things that we did. And as a former acting secretary of DCED, we probably increased their budget over there by about 14%, increasing the Keystone Communities line item. We increased the commitment to the municipal finance recovery fund by some dollars. That means they anticipate helping more communities, try to get their fiscal house in order. So pleased what we did at DCED, and a few more extra dollars for the Office of Open Records, which I'm glad to see. Overall, it was as best as we can do under the circumstances. I think the governor, to his credit, when he came here in February with his executive budget, he basically said, here's my budget. Here's what I think is going to be good for Pennsylvania this year. He did not entangle it with a whole pile of other public policy issues. They have kind of been debated independent of the budget, meaning the budget is standalone. That allowed us, I think, to get some bipartisan support and some thoughtful negotiations where we ended up. A little bit disappointed that we didn't get Restore PA that the governor proposed, major investment in infrastructure, didn't talk about severance tax again. And really in a heartless move, the majority decided to throw about 11,000 really vulnerable Pennsylvanians under the bus by eliminating the General Assistance Program. And doesn't affect a whole pile of people in my district, but it affects 11,000 people in the state, all over the state. And those are dollars that help people that are in some of the most difficult, vulnerable. And it's usually temporary assistance while they're trying to get federal disability assistance or whatever. So didn't think that was good public policy, and we obviously made our voices known on that. But overall, really glad to be able to put up a yes vote on that budget. I think we did very well under the circumstances. And the last thing that we did is we took 100% of the surplus from this year, which is close to $290 million. That's going right into the rainy day fund. Our rating agencies will look at that and think it was prudent to put some money aside in case we have a little hiccup in our economy, which I hope we don't. But in case we do, at least we're trying to be, good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And at the end of the day, no broad-based taxes in this budget. And that ought to be good news for all Pennsylvanians and our business community.